All right, so out here at a local church, just doing like a docu-style kind of video for them about they've been around for 10 years, so they want to kind of show where they've been and what they're doing now. But yeah, here I am with the cart, custom built cart. I have 6 C-stands up in there, 2 shorter ones which actually come in handy, pretty good in certain scenarios. And I just threw a 5-in-1 reflector up there, which I actually like. It's the 4x2 or 4x3 reflector, and I use it a lot. It's a really nice little piece of kit. I have 2 300Ds, a 600D, a 4-foot Amaran tube, 2 of the 2-foot Amaran tubes, and they work out really nice. I like those a lot. Just a little Manfrotto tripod there. Just putting them on the front of the C-stands, just so I have some room on top there. I'm about to throw my camera equipment up there. And then I have my little boom arm. I use this quite a bit for, you know, a variety of different things. Today I used it for the Amaran tube. I just used a 2-foot Amaran tube and I just boomed it. It was a wide shot, so I had to boom it all the way over and right behind them. So yeah, just I think I have lenses and cameras in that case there. And then the other one I have my my FX9, my Sony FX9 with a couple little things, monitors and things. So this was the first spot that I went to in the church that I figured, all right, maybe we can shoot in here. It's really aesthetically nice and pleasing. We could turn some stage lights on, and I liked the wall in the back there with the soundproofing. But I didn't want to put them on a stool. I wanted to keep them lower. And when I put them lower, all you could see was chairs. So we decided to go from the sanctuary, which you see over there. We went to this room, which they call the chapel. I was a little bit worried about this room at first for a couple reasons. So we ended up moving a lot of those pews that you see there. I'm about to turn the camera around here. Yeah, we ended up moving those to be a little more diagonal so I could shoot almost into the corner. I had just had a couple of those top windows on the left side of the frame and then the wall on the right, and you could see the pews, and I shined some light in through the pews, and it ended up looking really good. So we have a 600D and an 8x8. I put the 600D up high and I pointed it down because I wanted to fill as much of the 8x8 as I could. And I didn't want it to look top down, and it washed really nice, and it almost filled the entire 8x8 with light, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And with somewhat of a wider shot, it worked out really, really nice. And I have 2 of the Amaran 200 series lights, a warm tone going through the window, and then I have cool tone on the wall right next to it, teal and orange. And I have a 300D kind of adding some light and some streaks on the wall, which looked really nice. And here's that 8x8 again with the 600D. It's a cheap frame and a cheap material, but it worked out really nice. It looks great. And I have the Amaran 2-foot tube, and I have a bounce, which I had to put on a stand. And I am going to show you guys how I color corrected this, so make sure you stay tuned. In just a little bit, I'm going to show you guys this with the image as well. And even if you're a DaVinci user or a Final Cut user, you can still utilize these principles, because the principles for color correcting are always going to be the same. And in your program, you'll be able to find how to use these principles. So here's the final shot. The first shot here had to be for 2 people. This was the only one I had to do for 2 people. So the only thing I wish I would have done here was brought out a scrim kit and a black net for the female on the left there, because her skin is just a little bit brighter than his. I might in post just kind of fix that, but I feel like it looked really nice for a 2-person setup there. And sometimes you just have to roll with it. You can't just, you know, keep setting up equipment after you see something. Once the people are there and they're ready to record, you kind of just have to go for it, in my opinion, because you're going to break the story. The story is the most important thing. The story and their comfortability telling you the story. So all in all, I feel like it looked awesome. I was very, very happy with it. And here he is. She just left for a minute. I just wanted to show you guys this frame, but just a solo person, him sitting there also looks good. And yep, this was our next subject who came in. And this was a very emotional interview here. There were some things where I thought maybe I could soften that light a little bit more, maybe get some black net and also bring down the exposure on her shirt, because her shirt is also very bright because it's white. Her pants are very bright because they're white. It's not necessarily overexposed or in a bad spot, but what I wanted to do was kind of bring that exposure down. But again, the story is so important. Being a director, as well as the camera operator, is important to make sure the story isn't broken. So telling this story as a video producer, especially being the only person there who really understands how to tell this story correctly, it's really important that I don't break that chain of thought in the subject. I want them to be able to be comfortable and think clearly, and not having me coming in and out with all different kinds of material as the clock is ticking, right? We want to tell the whole story. So we have the Amaran 2-foot tube being a hair light for her, which I feel like looks really nice. We have the Amaran 200 series light kind of coming through that window. It could play off as the sun. It could also play off as a practical light kind of out in the lobby there. And then I have a teal look, which is just daylight hitting the wall right next to it, with the 300D adding some streaks on the wall, which is a happy mistake. And then the 200 series light by Amaran kind of going across the pews there in the back and hitting that wall teal color as well. And then the 300D you can see underneath is kind of adding a nice glow underneath there, which I thought was nice. Maybe a little hard, but pretty nice. And then on the shadow side there, we added a 5-in-1 reflector. It's the 4x3 or 4x2, something along those lines. It's a nice one. It's actually just the right size for the subject that we have here, because it fills her whole side there, her whole shadow side. And it just added a little bit more bump and exposure that we kind of needed, so it's not so deep in the shadows. I used to really like deep shadows. I'm starting to kind of go the opposite way a little bit more and add a little more light on the shadow side. And if you're having a really close key light, which the key light's pretty close, it's right out of frame here, you're going to get more of a shadow side. And you'll notice that you won't need to necessarily add negative fill if your key light is very close, if you have that option. So again, I'm right out of frame here with the key, so the shadow side was pretty deep, and we had to add that that reflector, that bounce, to come back. And the 2-foot tube is actually bouncing a little bit of warm light on that shadow side, which I'm not opposed to. I feel like it's okay and it still works pretty well. Okay, so I also wanted to show you guys how I'm going to color correct this here. I actually haven't even touched the color on it yet. I don't know how it's going to end up and how it's going to look, but let's try it out. I mean, I did have the LUT on my monitor, so it should come out kind of how I envisioned it in the first place. Now, I am noticing a C-stand leg, which I am going to have to get rid of. I'll probably just add maybe like a wooden leg look. Maybe I'll just put it here to add like another pew. Maybe I'll just take this or take this one and I'll stick it here. So that way we can get rid of that. I noticed it during the interview too, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'll take care of it later. So what I'm going to do first, and I know I'm in Premiere, guys, don't bother me about it. I know I got to move over to DaVinci here, but Premiere is my thing right now. So, all right. So I brought the shadows down to 0, and I'm going to take those red shadows out because those red shadows are going to make it muddy and just kind of gross here, right? So let's bring it down to right about there. I'm going to come back to my shadows here, and I might bring them up a little bit later too. And it's really hard for me to see this because I have it all on one page, and I usually have a couple monitors doing this, but for the sake of screen recording, I have to do it on one page. All right. So now I'm going to bring this down, and I'm looking at only really my scopes, not my image too much right now, right? And I'm going to look at my image in a minute here. So, okay, let's bring this back, and I'm going to look at my image, and it's looking pretty good already, right? So next what I want to do is actually, honestly, kind of really like that. I'm going to add a skin layer, and I put my skin layer on the top, and it's just Lumetri. So now what I want to do is I go to my opacity. I'm going to select her skin, and I feel like girls are usually a little bit harder to correct the skin tone, only because they wear makeup, and sometimes I feel like the makeup messes up the skin tone. So, all right, so we're gonna go to hue versus hue, and I'm gonna select this. I'm gonna select her skin, and I am noticing already, right, it's too magenta. It's shifting in the magenta area there. So what I wanna do is, just for the sake of this video, I'm gonna bring that way down. And I'm going to bring this down towards the green, and you'll see it come down into that skin line there, right? And I try not to go like in the middle of the skin line. I try to keep it almost like laying right on the skin line. That's just the way I've been doing it. I'm not sure if it's correct. But what I find is that leaning a little bit more towards the original color that it was shot at, it feels just a little bit more natural. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm not shooting for Hollywood here, so I feel like we're okay. All right, so now I want to show you guys something, and it's going to amaze you. So now if I come back here, let's get rid of that opacity. Okay, so now if I turn my skin on and off, look at the skin, look at her forehead, off, on, off, on. Look at her whole face, even her neck, even her hands, her leg, everything, right? It's making the skin more natural. This is the original Sony color. this is going to, honestly, looks more like an Ari at this point, or a Venice. It has that really nice skin tone when you start correcting the skin. Now, it is a Sony FX9, so the skin is already really good. But I find with aperture lighting, sometimes it hues more magenta, and then the diffusion you add in front of it, you know, bouncing off the pews and the ceilings and everything, it's going to add different hues, and you just need to clean it up. It's also going to clean up this and make it look more natural as well. Let's see that. Let's look at the sun in the back there. Not so much, which tells me maybe that's not even like a skin color, which usually when you add that color into the scene, it's usually competing with the skin, but we'll see that in a minute. Okay, so now I'm actually really liking this. I might just, let's see if I bring up, let's just see what happens if I bring up the shadows. I don't mind that. I'm going to bring up the shadows. I'm going to bring down, I'm going to see what the highlights do in my, I'm actually going to get rid of, how do I get rid of the vector? I'm going to get rid of the vector so I can see, okay, that's much better there. Okay, so now I'm going to bring the highlights down just a little bit, just to soften. I just want to soften the skin. And all these highlights, I want to soften them just a little bit. And if you notice, this isn't overexposed, right? We're fine with our highlights. But if I bring this down, look how much softer and nicer she starts to look, right? And I can bring the shadows up a little bit. And if I want to, I can add a little bit of contrast back. Now the contrast will add a little bit of harshness to the image, back into the image. But that's okay. So I'm liking the way that is looking. And now, I dig that. I like it. So we're going to stick with, actually, hang on. I'm going to go to my temperature. I can't believe I missed that part. It's not bad for temp. Maybe we stick around here. And I'm going to show you guys why in a minute. I've been doing this recently where I can add more blue with my temperature slider. Everything seems to be wanting to go to 6.6. I don't like that number. Let's keep it at 6. All right. All right. So now I'm going to add this here, which is my color bump and shift. And now when I'm bumping colors and shifting colors, I always put it below. And the reason is when I put it above my main color here, and the skin always goes above too, right? This goes the first thing is you want to correct the skin. But when I put the color shift or bump above the main correction here, I start to notice that it just crushes without going below 0. But I can see if it's going to go below 0 in some of these shadows here, and you'll see in a second here. Okay, so hue versus saturation. So I want to bump her skin tone a little bit because it's looking a little bit flat. So now I'm looking, as I bump this, I'm looking down here and I'm going to see how far it's going to go, right? So I'm bumping, and I'm seeing it a little, I'm just going to bump it way up and just see what happens, right? So obviously that doesn't look good. But first what I'm looking at is my shadows. I don't want to crush my shadows too much. A little bit under is okay. A little bit under is okay. So I feel like that right around, I don't want to go too far. I've been accused of going too far in the past. So let's leave it there. I feel like that looks great. And now I'm going to grab this blue, specifically the streak. That was a happy accident. And I'm going to bring it up, see what happens. Now I'm looking at this, I'm looking at my shadows in the reds. I don't want to crush them too much. And I look at those first. And then I look at the actual shot later. All right, so that's okay. And I mean, look at that. Look at how much nicer that looks. So I'm gonna bump this off. Oh my goodness, look at that. Dang, that looks great. This to me almost looks like a log image when after I take the color out. Now the hair there is a little bit harsh, right? But I mean, it is what it is. Again, I did notice this during the shoot, but I don't want to be breaking the chain of the story. This was a very emotional interview. I figure, you know what? Let's just keep it going. I'm just going to go with that dramatic hair light and we're okay with it. Now what I want to do is I want to look for any other hues that maybe I could bump. I'm not seeing much. I'm not seeing much here. Usually I look for a green. I don't see anything. Maybe what I can do is, let's just see what happens if I select this here. Okay, so it's the same, so or pretty close to it. So maybe what I can do is I'm just gonna bump the skin a tiny bit more. And I'm feeling like I want to come here and bring the highlights down a little, even a little bit more. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get the highlights all the way back up, which actually doesn't look so bad. And I'm gonna bring the whites down and see if that does anything different for me. I feel like the whites maybe leave a little bit more of that contrast in there. So let's see. The whites versus the highlights. Let's see. You know, I'm going to go with the whites. I feel like the whites are a little bit more even and are leaving a little bit more contrast in there for this specific scenario. So I feel like this looks really, really good. I'm happy with that. The skin is correct. So I'm going to show you guys quickly without the skin and without the correction and only the corrected LUT, which was, you know, getting those shadows and exposure kind of right and like the color balance pretty good. This is what it looks like. It looks fine, right? But then when you add the skin, ooh, already looking better. And you add that color bump, man, it's really, really coming together. So now what I want to do, I don't think I'm going to show it in this video, but what I'm going to have to do is get rid of this little C-stand leg, which I'm probably just going to maybe get another one of these. Maybe I'll just, you know, get an opacity layer on the image and just shift it, move it over and put it right here. I think that'll work pretty well. So maybe I'll show that in a later video. But yeah, I feel like this looks great. And I'm excited to kind of edit the rest of them. I'm going to be going to this church on Sunday and shooting some B-roll of the service and kind of adding it into this final video here. But yeah, here's the material later on when we left, or when I left, solo shoot here. And that material is not the best material, but it worked out pretty nice. And here is all of the equipment I had just packed up. And I'm going to show you that shot in a minute, probably towards the end of the video here. So just hang tight. Yep, so here's the cart just all set up again, ready to go outside. And I shouldn't have put that up there because I really don't want it to get, I don't want it to get dirty. These lights I got from Home Depot, they just magnetize right to the roof of the van or the ceiling of the van there. I can magnetize them really anywhere. And I got 2 of them and I just have to charge them every now and then, but it makes loading up, breaking down, things like that, looking for equipment much easier. And plus, if I'm in a sketchy area, like I kind of am here, I can turn these on. And if somebody were to approach the van that's up to no good or looking to cause trouble, at least there's a lot of light and people can see what's going on around us. Yep, so just loading up the Amaran 200 series lights. I just threw them in a crate. I used some packing stuff that I've had from other, you know, cases that I bought that I didn't use. And yeah, I'm just loading up the cases. I think that's the Sony FX9. I keep 2 monitors and just odds and ends in this case right here. So I just put them right in front of the cart and they fit perfectly. I can still shut the doors and everything, and I don't have to worry about things falling out when I open up the doors of the van. And yeah, so it fits all nice in there right now, but I do want to organize this a lot better. I want to make some wooden dividers and put shelving up on the sides and things like that, so I can put scrim kits and just a lot more organization, and I can put more equipment in there as well. One thing I always try to do when I'm leaving, I figured I would film this because it's important. This is where I kind of had some of my equipment, and this is where I had my setup. And there was things on the pews, there was things on the floor, underneath things. I try not to spread things out so much, but in this case I kind of did a little bit. I also had somebody who's not very familiar with video equipment packing up. So I'm just looking all over the floor, I'm looking on the pews, I'm looking everywhere to see if anything was left. And that's super important because I have left things behind before and it's not fun. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and see you later.